Okay, we do listen to you. So yeah, based on those comments, we did set up a session here on rethinking HR and payroll. So basically what I'm going to do is you're going to talk a bit about the fact that you do own the software, that, you know, due to the licensing changes from Microsoft, saving money, controlling your data and your processes, a little bit about reporting. Then I will get into a few practical examples, so some tips and tricks type of things in Canadian payroll and HR. And then we'll talk a bit about some add-on products that we like to recommend that really seem to help out some processes in the payroll HR area. So as I think someone had alluded to earlier, years ago it used to be that Canadian payroll and HR were separate modules, so you really had to kind of think about how much advantages it was for you before you purchased those. But back, I think in GP 2013, Microsoft made some licensing changes, and they're both part of the core GP. So you already own that, the software, so there's no additional software costs for that. So basically what you're doing is you're taking advantage of tools that you do already own. Can I? I'm losing my mouse here. So regarding saving money, if you are outsourcing your payroll, you are, you know, getting recurring costs indefinitely. Every month, every 2 weeks, however often it is, you're sending off that payment to the outsourced company. And if you're using Canadian payroll and HR internally, basically your costs are in the first year of the implementation. From then on, you're not, you know, paying those monthly fees. So there are some cost savings available there. Controlling your data. Another advantage about having that information in-house is that Canadian payroll is fully integrated to your general ledger. So you can really control how those costs get recorded. You can, you know, use that data for additional reporting, budgeting, etc. If you're using an outsourced company, there's typically very limited information that gets sent back to you, and you're having to figure out a way of taking that limited information, doing some mapping, and creating some sort of integration to even get that information in. So again, if you have data on site, you can grab that data and do much more. As well as just using Canadian payroll. Some people are, you know, not using either Canadian payroll or HR. Some people are only using Canadian payroll. The HR module is also part of your core product, so you can take advantage of the information there. There is a tool that allows you to synchronize that data between the two systems, between Canadian payroll and HR. So any information you already have set up on your employees, that's easily synchronized to the HR module so that you can start tracking additional information there. So things like training, maybe you want to track additional information about training on your employees, any company property that the employees may have, emergency contacts. You can track things like the position history, if people have gone through and, you know, changed positions, had promotions, all of that historical information is available for you to view and report on. You can do things like head counts and FTEs. Andrew also spoke earlier about document attachments. So the new method of document attachments is much nicer than the older version that GP had. Now, it's not available on your employee card in Canadian payroll, but the employee card for HR does have it. So again, you can track all kinds of additional documents. You can save them right with your employee card, a resume, you know, right from resume to any letters that you may have provided to the employee, any certificates perhaps that they've given you that you want to track. Anything like that is available to have the document attachment on. As far as the process goes, it seems to me that even if you're outsourcing the data, you're still the one that's doing all the heavy lifting. You know, your employees are tracking their time, you're gathering that time, you're putting it together in some fashion to send off to the outsourcing company, who then just pushes the button basically and says, okay, you know, I'll send it off to the bank for you. But most of the work is being done in-house already. So really, you're just adding a couple of extra steps where you're hitting that process button. You're in control of when the information gets sent to the bank. So you sometimes can gain some extra time there too. Outsourcing companies will want to have your money and your information earlier in the process so that they have time to complete that process and send the money to the bank. So, you know, you're getting a little bit of lead time there so that you can use that for your payroll processing. And often you're keeping your money in the bank for, you know, a day or two longer as well. If you're recording your information internally, you also have additional options for recording your labor costs. Again, it's linking directly to the general ledger, so you have some control there. You also have the ability to do things like linking to other modules like project accounting. You can record jobs and phases and additional information about the time that your employees are working. I'm not sure how good this is showing up. But basically it is just talking about taking advantage of some of the additional ways of navigating in GP. There are navigation panes for basically every module in the system, so I'm just showing the HR one. And I will go into the system and show some, you know, show some of these things as well. So yeah, it's just different ways of getting around the system. So I'm going to switch for a second here, and I'll go in and I'll take a look at the HR navigation panes. So I'm in GP, I'm on the HR and payroll main page. Along the left-hand side, you'll notice that there's all these additional options here. So these are just different methods of accessing data. And I'm going to go to the employee navigation pane under HR and payroll. And this brings up a different way of looking at that information. So in this case, it's giving you a list of all of the employees that are available. There's some nice filters that you're able to use. So I can say things like, you know, maybe the employee ID contains TH. Okay, so that's immediately filtered this information, and I've just got any employee that has TH anywhere in their employee, whether it be their first name, last name, employee ID, doesn't matter. It's pulled that information up. You can also do a lot of navigations from this screen. So for example, I've selected a particular employee. I have all kinds of additional information that becomes available along the top. I can take a look at things like skills, training. I can maybe go, if this is a new employee, for example, I could immediately go in and take a look at orientation. Let me try that again. I could look at orientation. No, apparently I can't. I may have just frozen. So there is additional information that you can look at here. There we go, just took that. It's not particularly fast here. So in this particular, like I say, what I've done is I've used additional information that's available through HR. I set up a checklist of all the things that I commonly need to do when a new employee starts. Okay, so I had to create a job requisition, you know, review the schedule and job basics with the employee, complete all new hire forms. So, you know, any information, this is completely customizable. So whatever it is that you want on this list, this is something that can be created in HR. You can also assign these, you know, these pieces of information to particular people. So if there's one person that has to look after the new hire forms and somebody else has to create a network login, you know, those would be two separate tasks that would be assigned to different users in the system. So yeah, from here, the point was that that navigation list can be used to just allow you to move around the system without having to either, you know, look through the main page and go, where was that again? Is it under utilities or is it under administration? Or, you know, so it allows you to kind of shortcut and go to different areas in the system. Okay. And to get back to your main page, it's just clicking on that top button again to go to HR and payroll. Okay, our network's slowed right down. So the next, maybe I'll go back over to, get rid of that. Just back to my PowerPoint here. And another thing that I want to go through is some of the letter writing abilities. Again, these link to the HR employee card that's, you know, set up when you do the synchronization. It isn't available on the Canadian payroll side, but it can be quite handy. So along with this, I'm going to lead into the document attachment as well. So let's see if they've caught up with me yet. Okay. So let me see. I'm going to go to my employee. Now this can be done for multiple employees at once, or you can do it, directly for a single employee on the employee screen. So I'm going to select myself again. Come on. I'm going to have to talk really, really slow so that the computer keeps up with me. So again, I'll talk a little bit about, so the letter writing feature is something that's available not just in HR, it's available in all other modules. Something where there's some standard ones that are set up in the system that you can just use right out of the box. You can modify those to meet your needs, or you can create your own custom letters. So if there's things that you want to set up a certain way, you want whatever it is, it's really just taking advantage of the mail merge functionality within Microsoft Word, gathering the data from GP. Okay. Okay. This is not going to work so well. Okay, maybe I will see if that can come back, and I'll talk a bit more on the reporting side and things like that. But yeah, I do have a number of things that I wanted to show within the system.
Jared, can you check the amp speed?
Actually, I think it's my, I'm just showing myself.
I was going to say, Renee.
Renee! I told you I was going to get sabotaged by one of my coworkers. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about reporting then. So again, it's back to having your data in in your GP system versus having it outsourced. If all that information is in the system, this is going to allow you to get at it and do some better reporting. You can create your reports and queries on the fly using tools like the in-house or the report writing tool that's in GP. You can use SSRS. You can use your smart lists. The data's there. You're going to be able to get access to it and use it in the way that you want. You can also use additional reporting tools like the BI reporting that Renee spoke of. One of the, all of the tables for HR and Canadian Payroll are part of that SQL server. So you can access that and do some fancy graphing and information like that. I see Ali's eyes kind of lighting up about that one. So yeah, in SQL cubes even. So as long as the data is yours and you control it, you have much more ability to report on it. Okay, there we go. The employee's back. So I'll go back a bit and talk more about that letter writing. So along the top of the window, there's an option to write letters. There's a bunch of different options available for you, kind of broad categories that are defaults within the system. Letter maintenance is where you would be able to access that data and create your own custom letters. I'm going to create an employee letter. I think I'm going to give myself a promotion. Okay, so again, this is selecting a single employee. You can do this for a number of employees at the same time. If there was rate increase or and things like that, that can all link to that data, and you can select multiple employees at a time. Okay, so you can choose who you want this coming from. It's just going to be from me. I'm going to be the boss. Okay. Okay, and I'm going to finish. So it goes along and it prepares the letters. It takes all of the information from the system, so it knows who the employee is and know what position they're in. So it's going to fill that information in on the actual letter. Okay, so obviously this is not formatted particularly. Okay, and I think that perhaps I don't want this promotion. I'm getting compensated at 0, so I decline. I actually saved this earlier, so the next step to this is, so you've got these letters that you're creating. You can also attach them right to the employee card. So any of the communications that you're doing, we spoke earlier about the attachments. So I've got a number of things already attached to this. I've got a resume, I've got a certificate of achievement. I could also then go along and I could find this, this is not where I want to be. I could attach the the letter that I've just saved, I could attach that so that I have that communication available as well. I thought I had saved it, but apparently I didn't. Maybe it's in here. No. I can save it and I can show you because I want to show you that you can preview those as well. I'll just put it on the desktop for now. Okay, so if I wanted to do find that document that I just created, then I can go ahead and I can attach it. I'll go to the desktop where I just saved it. I will find it. Perhaps. There it is, the promotion notice. Okay, so it's now attached. And if I select that document and want to preview it later, there's a preview button and it basically just opens it. So it's a real nice way to keep some of that information instead of having, to go to a SharePoint site, a shared network location that you have to keep secure, etc. So it's all available right from within the system for you that way. Yes. Yeah, it would be in this case. Sorry, I'm just going to get back on track here. So, up to this point, I've talked about some of the advantages of starting to use Payroll HR, but there are people here that are already using Payroll and HR, so I also wanted to include some additional information there, some practical kind of tips and tricks, things that I've done with other clients or ideas in that direction. So I will show some examples of some smart lists that I've created, some Excel reports. I'll go back through that orientation checklist. We can also do that with terminations, so I'll go through that. I'm also going to show you there are a few options available for self-serve within HR, and that allows you to have separate licenses for your employees that cost quite a bit less and allows them to do, some things, log in and do some things. In this instance, I'm going to show you how I've set up a workflow, and an employee is able to enter their own training information and submit it and have someone approve it. So if you wanted people to track that information. So that'll lead in a little bit to the workflows that is coming next after this. So I'll talk a bit about that. I'm going to show Excel Everywhere, one of the top options that we talked to Rick referenced earlier. I think you've all got the leave behind that was at the front counter as well. So yeah, so I'm going to do the practical tips. Where am I going here? Okay, let me get out of here. All right. So one of the things that I often hear from people is, we've got this information, but how on earth, I look at a regular smart list that's not there. I run a report, it doesn't have everything I want in it. So I wanted to show you some of the things that I've created, just in testing or for demos for other clients. So things like employee pay code rates. So the reports themselves at a GP, the information's there, but it isn't always in the nicest format way you might want to see it. So this allows you to just see for every employee, for every different pay code in the system, what their actual rates are. So you could also do things like have favorites where maybe you only want to see the income codes for employees. You can take advantage of all of the additional things of Smart List where you can download it to Excel, you can do your searches and filters. So yeah, it just gives you everything in a nice list. Instead of trying to look up on every employee, open up the employee card and go to the pay codes. Let me see. I have set up here one called Prior Pay Run. So I know that some of you, when doing payroll, that's always a nice place to start. This is what we had last time. So let's start with that next, for this pay run, and then I can just do any adjustments that maybe need to happen. So this is all of the actual transactional data from the tables for Canadian payroll, and perhaps you want to just search and you want to limit it to the last the last pay run. Okay, so I'm going to use this one to show you this because I'm also going to use this in concert with our Excel everywhere. So this is the last pay run. This is everything that was in it. I've got it restricted to income pay codes. I can download this, and this can be my starting point to take advantage of using the Excel everywhere as well. So I think I already saved this, but I'll make sure. Yeah, so I did go through this process earlier to make sure that I was prepared for it. So I have a copy of this saved, and I'm going to use that when I show you the Excel everywhere. Okay, so I don't need to save this one. Some of the other things that we've done, here's one that's kind of nice that you can use to take a look at just summary information on all your payroll. So again, this is by every batch. It's got every employee, but I've set it up so that it's just different columns for total income, total benefits, total deductions, and net pay. So this is a great one where if you want to take a look at doing some spot checks. Okay, so this is what normal payroll is. So I can look at the last three, compare last pay to this pay. I could look at over a month. I can, look at it in any different way just to say, okay, well, last pay period they had $1,000. This pay period they have $5,000. Why? Right, and drill into that information. So this one I did as an Excel or a smart list. I also have a copy of that I set up as an Excel report. So what the Excel reports are is it's using the same information that's on your smart lists, but it's in Excel, and you can refresh this so that any new transactions you do can automatically be reflected in this particular document. Now, let me see, I want to open up this one. So along with that, what you can do is if you want to do some additional analytics on any of that information, you still have your data tab here that's just picking up all of the information whenever you refresh it. So any new transactions that appear just automatically get refreshed with the data. But you can also add additional tabs using the functionality in Excel. So I've got a pivot table on here. Okay, so here's my last payroll. I've got all of my employees with the income benefits deductions. If I wanted to, I could have another payroll batch there. Maybe it's current one and prior, so that you can do some some checks and some validation. So that's pretty slick. Let's see. Even head count. So you can have your information on all your employees. If you're tracking FTEs, you can have that in there as well. Also, you could use that as an Excel report. So, a couple other things in here then. I had mentioned that there are some self-service options. Now, a lot of these are specific to US payroll, so you're not going to be able to use all of them. But I did set something up with the employee skills and training. Okay, so I'm logged in as myself. I've linked my network user ID to a user in the system. So I'm allowed to, enter this information. There's additional information. I can see any training that I have done, any skills that have been entered, tests. So it's the tests that I've set up to have workflow on as well. So as an employee, if you had, some certifications perhaps that you had to maintain, you could log in through the employee self-service, enter that you had done these certifications and what the results were. You could submit it so that someone who's set up as an approver can review it and approve. So I have some submit, recall workflow actions here. And you can also see all the history. So I can see that it was the employee originated, there was a final approval, a recall, a resubmit, and then there's approval skills that are pending as well. So again, a lot of the self-serve may be quite specific to US payroll, but there may be some additional items there that you can do as well. I'm not going to go through the workflow portion because Gordon and Renee are going to do that separately. So you'll see how that workflow is set up. It's the same way for the payroll as it is for the others. Okay. I did talk briefly about the orientation. So I'm just going to show you where I did that, how it's set up. It's very, very simple. And one of the things that I'll add on to that is that with human resources, there's this big mass of information that you can actually use, but it's really easy to kind of cherry pick and say, you know what, I don't need the whole thing. I don't need to track applicants in here perhaps, but maybe I want to track, I do want some checklists. Maybe I want to, I want to be able to track the property that I've given to an employee. So there's a lot of information there, but you can really pick and choose what it is. You can, take one piece out of it and use it. It's not going to cost you anymore, you already own it. So in this instance, I had created a new hire checklist. We already looked at this, that it was assigned to an employee. But basically, you can use predefined items that are in there, or you can do your own. You can order them in whatever order you want. You can assign them to different people in the system. You can set up default steps. And then again, as people are hired, you can assign this checklist to the employee, go through and make sure it's all done. You can send it off by email. You can do different things like that that may help you to get some consistency in that process. It also, again, gets saved with the employee card within HR. Okay, here's the one I've been waiting for. So we talked about one of the new products that we have called Excel. I've got anywhere here, but Excel everywhere. So this is pretty slick because I know there are people that are still entering their information into the system through quick transaction entry. And this is quite nice because, again, maybe you start with your prior payroll batch. So I had downloaded that, pay period 25, and I've got a copy of it in Excel. So let me go back to, and I've got all of the information that I need to be able to enter this within a payroll batch. There are a few items that you must have in order to, copy this data into a payroll batch. But you can use any of it. You can take all of this information if you want, because there's Excel everywhere for payroll. You can copy into quick transaction entry. If you're using rate table entry, you can use it there. You can use it with complete transaction entry. So if you wanted to track jobs and phases and different positions and whatever it is, it'll work on any one of those windows. So I have a batch set up, and I'm just going to go into quick transaction entry. So this is pay period 26. It's empty. So I could go through and enter that. I could use some of the import functions that are available. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the employee ID, date, department, income code, units, and rate. If you didn't have the rate, you can leave this out. It'll use the default that is assigned to the employee. You could override this and set a different rate. If it was a special pay, you can choose what you want to do there. So I'm going to copy. I'm going to come back into this window under additional. I've got an option called paste selected Excel data. Sorry, I need to breathe. This is asking if your data has a header row. In my instance, it does. Ta-da! So, boom, it's there. So I really like this one. This is a nice feature. Okay. So I have to coming back in my process. I'm trying to get back to a particular slide here. 16, here we go. All right, so out of the box, payroll does quite a bit, but there's certain things that aren't covered, and there's some really nice third-party products that help the process along. So I'm going to talk a little bit about different areas in the system that that you might want additional functionality with, and some of the third-party products that are available. So first off on the list, we've got time bank management. So if you're tracking vacation and stat holidays or banked overtime, sick time, whatever it might be, you can track that in GP, but the core functionality on time banks is quite limited. You're only allowed 4 different ones. The viewing of the transactions are difficult, to say the least. So there are a couple add-on products that are available to assist in that area. One is just the new product that we've released called the Power Pack, Payroll Power Pack from us. Diamond Reach has been around for a while as well, and that one also does the same thing. Rate management, same 2 products. So what I mean by that is the ability to say, okay, if I have my regular hourly rate, and I've got overtime, I've got vacation, I've got other rates that are associated with that. Without an additional tool, if there's a rate increase or change, you have to go into each one of those pay codes and make that change. This allows you to create a relationship so that you can make a rate change on your main pay code. All of the other ones are automatically updated for you. So it's a huge help in that area. Secure communications. So for example, emailing of confidential information like pay stubs and T4s, not necessarily just email. So our product Penny allows the user to log into the portal, be able to access that information securely. One of the changes that came out at the end of last year was that CRA is actually recommending an electronic process for T4s. So this is a couple of the products that would allow you to do that. Timesheet entry, leave management, again, we've got Penny. Applicant tracking. This is a new product that we've come across and are doing some looking at, and it's called My Staffing Pro. So I'll talk a bit about that. It basically is taking information right from a job requisition to tracking your applicants all the way through to onboarding, linking right directly through to GP where those employees get created. If you are interested in tracking skills and certification management, there's the somewhat basic information that's available in HR directly. There is an extended HR module that's available for purchase for GP, right from Microsoft. We also have a product, Marshall, that does not only the certifications, but also the whole safety piece. Okay, so I want to show you a little bit about the Joe Power Pack, because it is new and exciting. And I've added in some screenshots in the documentation. I think everybody gets a copy of the PowerPoints, so there's some screenshots in there for reference after the fact, but I will go through and show some of the windows. So. So in the Joe Payroll Power Pack, as I talked about, we do have the ability to set up multiple time banks. And we also have the ability to really set up all of the configuration. It's really flexible. So for example, if we looked at something in here like, let's take vacation for salary people. So in this instance, this is set up so that at the beginning of every year, all of your salary people get their vacation added to their time bank. And depending on years of service, that they might get 10 days, 15 days, however that might be, it's set up to automatically look at the employee card, look at the service date, do the calculations and add those correct amounts. You don't have to remember or have little reminders in the system or on some sort of external information to, oh, this person's anniversary is coming up, we have to change the number of units they have. It's set up to set up this information to calculate out so that you don't have to remember for your employees, you just have to make sure that their dates are correct. This will do the whole thing for you. So it has a number of different options available. So this one's set up as an annual grant. We can also do different earn types, such as, you know, a constant amount. So maybe everybody gets 2 sick days, 5 sick days a year. You can do things like that. You can set it up so it's a manual add, so banked overtime. You're not actually just giving people banked overtime. As those pay codes are used, they're granted. So there's lots of different functionality, lots of different ways to set this up so that you're not doing the calculations, maintaining all this information in Excel or wherever it might be. Breathe again. Yeah, so you can set it up. You have to have one banked pay code, and you know, you can have one or more income codes that link to it. So now, along with that, rather than trying to, you know, set up a payroll batch or, you know, again, doing that calculation in outside of the system, we do have a processing window that allows you to go through and say, okay, for that vacation salary, I'm going to put it into this payroll batch, and it will go through and just find all that information, calculate it out. It allows you to preview it beforehand if you choose, and it'll add it directly to a payroll batch for you. You can do additional things, like if you wanted to choose an employee class and do, you know, a particular area. If you want to do by employee, you can even do it so that, you know, maybe you want to add, maybe you add some of your time banks on an anniversary date. So you could do that, you know, using a start and cutoff date. There's also the ability to do what's called flush or payout. So a good example of that is some people, you know, grant sick days at the beginning of each year, but they don't carry over. So if you don't use them, you lose them, you get all your new ones in the beginning of the year. So this allows you to clear those banks out, start at 0, and then come through and do the processing again so that you have those added. So it saves a lot of time. I'm going to move on to another feature of the Power Pack, which is the linked pay codes. So I think I've described the functionality of it, but to show you how it works on a pay code, if I go to the Joe linked pay code setup, so in this case, on the regular pay code, I've said that OT is linked and it's at 1.5, vacation is at 1. I could add as many additional pay codes as I like. When the rate is changed on that pay code reg, all the others will be changed based on the factor that you've assigned. Is there any questions so far? Okay. Along with setting the pay code or the banks up and things like that, we have also set it up so that there's smart lists that are automatically created that'll show all the bank details, all of the transactions that you can use then to analyze, do any kind of reconciliations you might want. There's some bank summaries. There's even the ability to make changes on any of these transactions that actually keeps an audit trail. So if there has been a change, it is recorded as well. All right. I guess I can also show you then, I think probably Randall. If you're looking at the banked window, so rather than just seeing, okay, there's 10 units left and not knowing if that's what you started with or if any have been used, any of the different time banks that are assigned to the employee are showing, oh, well, this person has zeros, but you get the point. When you select a transaction along the top, you're also seeing some of the data below. So we've got some information added and taken, and for this current year, it's at 0. So it is quite a bit nicer than to try and track that information. Again, I've added in some screenshots just for the leave behinds. Okay, so my staffing pro. I won't take too much time on this, but basically this is a tool. It's an online tool. It as I mentioned, links to GP. So it will track everything right through from applications that people submit online. We'll take that information and set up the applicant. It goes right through to onboarding, any analytics, reporting. So there's online recruiting tools that come with it, tracking and compliance tools. There's workflows, fairly advanced workflows that can be used along that process. So you can transfer things from, maybe you do need to send something through to someone else. And also the ability to view, email, print, and export. So that's a nice add-on as well. Okay. And again, any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
It's just going back to, you had mentioned that there's something called dynamic self-serve.
Yes.
For employees and things. Can you just expand on that a little bit? And what's your opinion? Like, does anybody actually use that, or what kind of situation do you use?
It's fairly limited because a lot of it is really regarding linking to U.S. payroll. Okay, so in some instances, if there was some information, if you wanted people to view their employee profile, if perhaps you did want to have them enter in skills or training or things like that. So that one window that I showed you that's in the leave behinds for things like that. So it's not really robust in a Canadian payroll situation, but there may be some things, and the user licenses are quite a bit cheaper. So
when you're running your time bank, does that run in a separate batch by itself, or you're running that in conjunction?
you can choose.
Okay.
Yeah, so you choose the payroll batch that you want things added to, Darren. So if you already had your information in there, it would simply add it. If you want to do it completely separate, that's an option as well. Yeah, so you choose it. You can choose how often you want to do it, everything.
Just touching on that vacation bank, you mentioned that it's geared towards a date, a start date, or
there's also additional dates that you can track for that. I didn't show you that. So
dates are in that for different banks?
4. So along with on the bank screen, so you have your start date, that's one, but that's a pretty static date and it doesn't always match what you need, right? Employee leaves and comes back, you have to update that start date, but maybe their accruals are based on their original start date or a service date or a benefits allowed date or whatever it might be. So we've added in 3 additional dates. So we've got a service date and then 2 user-defined dates, and you can use any one of these. So you could even have like 4 dates attached to an employee. You could use different dates for different leave banks. Maybe for sick, they get one, and for something else, they get a service date or whatever it might be. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you then.